Alrighty, hello. I am Lucas Taylor, and this is my final project for Honors 299. Um, I'm a little late turning this in, so hopefully I can still get some credit for it. I forgot about it, but trying to get back on top of things. This semester I read the book of Romans and just tried to see how it would apply to a Roman Christian back in the day, and then a Christian today, how it can apply. And a lot of the life application kind of overlaps a little bit, and um, so I might talk, some things may be the same, but there may be a little bit different application on different sections. But just as like a general overview, Romans, it's a letter, and so while it has chapters, we divide it into chapters. It originally wasn't written that way. It was just written as a letter to Roman Christians. Paul was writing to the church in Rome around 50, 60 AD, somewhere around there. And so Paul just writes to the Romans. He writes to the Roman church, and what he wants to do is to just give them a concrete theological foundation, so they can construct their faith on that, live around that, and serve God effectively through that. And so, while it provides a concrete theological foundation for the Roman Christians back in the day, it also does the same for Christians today. And so that's a lot what the first 8 chapters are in the book of Romans. Romans chapter 1, something that Paul says, in verse 16, he says, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation for all believers, first to the Jew, then to the Gentile." Basically what that means, he was just establishing that the gospel message is the way of salvation. That's how people are saved by Jesus Christ. And so that's what he wanted to establish. Through the second, third, fourth, and even fifth chapters, Paul talks a lot about the righteousness of God. And he talks about this concept that theologians today call the Great Exchange, where the righteousness of God is counted in sinners, which is really cool, I think. And so it's called the Great Exchange because Jesus, the way it's explained is Jesus took sinners' place on the cross. He died the punishment that they deserved, and so sinners instead, there's an exchange there, and they receive the righteousness that Christ had. And so that's really cool. And so that's what Romans 2, 3, 4, and even 5 talk about. It talks about Romans 3, "For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God." So it explains that all people are sinners, and that was a big life application for the Romans and for people today. Romans 6:23 says, "For the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is righteousness through Christ Jesus." So what that means is that the punishment for sin is death. And then he goes on to explain that Jesus took that. And then in Romans 8, he talks about the love that God has for sinners. And so basically the first 8 chapters of the book of Romans are to give this concrete theological foundation that people are sinful, that they deserve to die, but Jesus took that punishment for death, and through that, salvation is offered in love and grace. And so that's really the application for Roman Christians then and Christians today. And now, in the context, that's a little different. People can be Christians today and not be persecuted at all in the United States. Actually, this lack of persecution has almost watered down Christianity into just a cultural thing. But to be a Christian back in Roman times meant to basically sign a death, I guess, that you're willing to die for what you believe. And so that's a little bit of a contextual difference. But going from Romans 9 through 11, that talks about God's sovereignty over salvation. And so while chapters 1 through 8 gave like a solid theological background, chapters 9 says God orchestrates it all. Specifically, chapter 9 talks about that. Chapter 10 is charged to believers to join God in expressing, in telling of this salvation. And so, chapter 10 it spells out how people come into a right relationship with God. It says in chapter 13, if you confess, or in chapter 10, verse 13, if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you'll be saved. For with the heart one believes, resulting in righteousness, and with the mouth one confesses, resulting in salvation. And so, chapter 10, he explains how people are saved. And then going on, chapters 12 through 16 are just about how Christians can live a holy lifestyle. And this is where the application sort of got to overlap a lot. There wasn't really a contextual difference because a lot of the things that the Roman people struggled with were some things that people struggle with today. Much jealousy, just all sort of things that society sees as bad, people struggle with. And so Paul just says, hey, don't do that, but instead love one another. And so that's basically the life application. From what I've gotten out of this semester, though, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed reading a book that I'd never read before. I'd always been told that it was really rewarding to read, and so I enjoyed that, and I'll definitely be reading it again. But I learned a lot this semester. Basically everything I've talked about so far, I just kind of learned throughout the weeks this semester, and so that's been really rewarding for me, and thankful for the opportunity to get credit to just read what I want. So thank you.